He told me he was flying out for business. A quick 3-day trip. Meetings, dinners, strategy sessions. Nothing new. He kissed my forehead like always, but it felt rushed. Not cold. Not cruel. Just empty. Like he was checking off a box he no longer cared to read. "Don't wait up," he said, slinging his carry-on over his shoulder. I nodded. I didn't kiss him back. That first night, I made tea and forgot it on the counter. I scrolled my phone out of habit, not curiosity. I wasn't looking for anything. Not really. But when someone pulls away from you, even slowly, you start to notice the shape they used to leave behind. I didn't sleep much. Blamed the caffeine. The next afternoon, I was in the kitchen trying to keep my mind off things. My phone buzzed, a new Instagram story. It was from my sister. I tapped it without thinking. Just a view. A balcony. The ocean. Palm trees swaying gently. A glass of wine on a table. Typical of her, she romanticized everything. Always had. But something about that image stuck to my skin. I knew that view. I blinked, stared harder. That railing, that curve in the pool, that golden hour light, it wasn't just familiar. It was exact. I'd been there. With him. 2 years ago, for our anniversary. I paused the story and took a screenshot. I compared it to an old photo on my phone from that same resort. It matched. Perfectly. At first, I felt dizzy. Then angry. Then calm. So calm it scared me. Because I didn't need confirmation. I didn't need faces or kisses or hands in the frame. I just needed that balcony. That ocean. And her phone. There he was, not in front of the camera, but in the reflection. Barely visible. Just enough to recognize the outline of his arm, the sleeve he always rolled up, and the glass he held the same way every time. That was all I needed. That was my story. And the worst part? I didn't feel shocked. I felt stupid for not seeing it sooner. I put my phone down. I sat at the edge of the bed. And I breathed. Not to stay calm. But because I finally felt something break loose, something heavy I'd carried for months without naming. That night, I didn't call him. I didn't call her. I didn't cry. I watched the story expire. Some truths don't arrive with noise. Sometimes they appear in passing, in the margins, in the blurry background of someone else's perfect moment. And sometimes, they set you free, not to leave, but to finally see. If you've ever felt that something was wrong but couldn't explain why, this story is for you. Sometimes the proof isn't a text or a voice message. Sometimes it's in the reflection, just behind the glass. Stay with me for what came next. And if this already speaks to you, consider subscribing or sharing it. Stories like these deserve to be heard. I didn't confront him. Not the night I saw the story. Not the morning after. I didn't throw my phone or scream or even mention it. I just watched. He texted me the next day, long day. "I'll call you tomorrow. Love you." I replied, "Sleep well." He didn't notice the change. Not right away. Men like him rarely do. But I did. I noticed how steady my hands were. How quiet the room felt now that the noise inside my head had a name. I knew the truth. And somehow, that made me calmer than I'd expected. When he came back from his trip, he brought me a bottle of wine. My favorite, or at least, it used to be. "Got this at duty-free," he said, smiling like he was proud of the gesture. I thanked him. I didn't open it. That night, we sat on the couch watching some movie I can't remember. He rested his hand on my leg. I didn't move it, but I didn't move closer either. I let it be. Just like everything else. I wasn't punishing him. I was studying him. Every word. Every delay. Every unconscious shift in tone. He told me about the conference, about the hotel, about the food. None of it matched the pictures my sister had posted and quickly deleted. I wondered if they coordinated their lies or if they simply hoped I wasn't paying attention. I started to write things down. Notes in my phone. Moments. Inconsistencies. Not to build a case, but to track myself, the version of me that had started waking up. I became quiet. Not withdrawn, not cold, just still. The kind of stillness that unsettles someone who's used to you doing all the emotional lifting. He didn't say anything, but I noticed him watching me. Like I had become a question he didn't know how to answer. And my sister? She went silent, too. No more stories. No calls. Just on a random photo days later. As if to say, I'm still here, without having the courage to say anything real. One afternoon, I invited her over. She seemed hesitant but agreed. When she arrived, she hugged me like always. She smiled, complimented the house, sat on the same couch where I'd once told her everything. She talked about work, about stress, about needing a break. I listened. Then, as casually as she could manage, she said, I saw a place online that reminded me of that resort you and Mark went to. The one by the ocean. I didn't respond right away. Just looked at her. She realized her mistake. Her voice faltered. I mean, I just remembered it. That's all. I smiled. She changed the subject. Quickly. I let her. Because here's the thing, I didn't need her confession. She already told me everything in that slip, in her eyes, in the way her hands fidgeted with the hem of her sleeve. That day, I learned that silence isn't weakness. It's a test. And they were both failing. After she left, I sat down and opened my notes. I added a single line. They're waiting for me to explode. I won't. They didn't know it, but I had already started leaving. Not physically, not yet. But emotionally, I had taken one step back. And when you take that first step away from someone's version of you, it's the beginning of everything they can't control. The strange thing about pulling away is that you rarely have to say anything. People just feel it. And he did. At first, it showed in small ways. He started coming home earlier. He asked if I wanted to have dinner out, if I needed anything from the store. One night, he brought home fresh flowers, something he hadn't done in months. I smiled. I thanked him. I didn't ask why. Because I knew. He wasn't being thoughtful. He was responding to a shift. He just didn't know what it was yet, and that's what scared him. I had stopped chasing the version of myself who used to check in, double text, worry if he was okay. Now I responded when I felt like it. I kept things short. Not cold. Just precise. He was careful around me. Like someone walking into a room they once owned, unsure if the furniture had been rearranged. And I had rearranged everything inside myself. I started doing things alone again. I took morning walks. I stayed longer at the bookstore. I stopped waiting for him to eat. I listened to music with headphones on, not to avoid him, but to listen to myself again. One morning, he asked, "Everything all right with us?" I looked up from my coffee. Define all right. He blinked. I mean, are we okay? I smiled. We're functional. He didn't ask more. He knew he wouldn't like the answers. That night, he reached for me in bed. I turned gently, without anger, and whispered, "I'm tired." He didn't try again. What he didn't know is that I had already started looking at apartments, not to leave yet, but to know I could. I also reconnected with a former colleague, someone from my old life before the marriage. We had coffee. She told me about a new position opening up in her department, flexible hours, remote options. If you're even a little interested, she said, let me know. I told her I'd think about it. What I meant was, I already had. Back at home, I caught him glancing at my phone when he thought I wasn't looking. I left it unlocked. I had nothing to hide. And that, I think, made him even more suspicious. For the first time in our relationship, I could see fear in his posture. Not fear of losing me, but fear that I no longer needed him. That I wasn't trying to prove anything. That I was just watching. He asked one night, "Why are you so quiet lately?" I answered without hesitation, because noise doesn't fix what silence already revealed. He sat back. That's when I knew, he had no idea what I knew, or how I knew it. But he knew I was gone, in the ways that mattered. My sister, meanwhile, stayed silent. No calls. No visits. She existed only in digital traces, tagged in photos by mutual friends, liking old posts as if to say I'm still here. I didn't block her. I didn't message her. I didn't need to. Some ties don't need to be cut. They dissolve on their own when you stop pretending they still hold anything. That week, I updated my resume. I didn't tell him. I scheduled a call with my old boss. I bought a new planner. I lit a candle and wrote a sentence in it. Every quiet decision I make is a step back to myself. And with every step, I felt lighter. Not because it hurt less, but because I finally knew that I was no longer waiting for either of them to explain what they did. I wasn't waiting at all. I didn't pack a bag. Not yet. But I did fold a few things differently. Started sorting what was mine and what wasn't. I kept a mental list, not of what to take, but of what I didn't need anymore. That list grew quickly. One Sunday morning, while he was still asleep, I opened my laptop and applied for the job my old colleague had told me about. It wasn't a dream job. It didn't have to be. It was something mine, and that was enough. Later that day, he asked if I wanted to drive out to the countryside like we used to. I said I had a headache. He nodded, looked disappointed. But not surprised. I had become something unfamiliar to him, still, independent, emotionally out of reach. And that frightened him. At dinner, he brought up plans for our anniversary. Maybe we go somewhere new this time, he said. I looked at my plate. We're not new, I replied. We're just good at pretending. He didn't speak after that. The fork in his hand trembled slightly before he put it down. That night, I stayed up reading. I lit a candle. I wrote in my notebook, a real one this time, not digital. I didn't want a record anyone else could find. I wrote down how many days I had felt invisible in my own house. I wrote about the story on my sister's Instagram. I drew the outline of that balcony and wrote. She thought I wouldn't notice. He thought I wouldn't feel it. I did. My sister still hadn't reached out. I saw her tagged in a photo at a dinner party, smiling. Carefree. I stared at that smile for too long. Then I closed the app and deleted it from my phone. Not out of anger, but because I no longer needed access to people who erased me to feel full. The next day, I took a walk past a small apartment complex 2 streets away. There was a for rent sign in the window of a second-floor unit. I took a picture. Later, I emailed the landlord. I scheduled a viewing for Friday. I didn't tell anyone. The stillness inside me was no longer fragile. It had become structure. A scaffolding of quiet power. That week, I received a reply to my job application, "We'd love to interview you." I smiled at the screen. Not because I felt lucky, but because I felt ready. At home, he had started watching me more than he spoke to me. One evening, I came home from the grocery store and found him sitting on the edge of the bed, looking like he was waiting to ask a question. He didn't. And I didn't offer answers. Because when someone doesn't know what to ask, it's often because they already suspect the answer will hurt. I folded laundry. I cooked a simple dinner. I sat across from him and talked about nothing important. And in the quiet between our words, I packed 1,000 unspoken miles. That night, I stared at the ceiling for a long time. Not out of fear, or doubt, or heartbreak. I was timing my breath. Preparing for the shift. The gentle, firm release. I knew the next chapter wouldn't be loud. But it would be mine. It wasn't dramatic. There were no raised voices, no slammed doors, no accusations. Just a quiet morning. I woke before him. Packed my bag, the one I had mentally packed for weeks. A few clothes. A notebook. My laptop. A printed copy of my resume. My toothbrush. Nothing sentimental. I made coffee. Watched the steam rise. Let it cool. Then I wrote a short note. Just a few words, "Please don't call." There's nothing left to say. I didn't cry. I didn't wait. When he came into the room, he froze. His eyes moved from my bag to my face. "You're leaving?" I nodded. "For good?" "No. For me." He stood there like he didn't know whether to stop me or let me go. And the truth is, he didn't know how to do either. "I didn't mean to hurt you," he said. I looked at him, and for the first time, I felt nothing. Not anger, not pity. Just the clear recognition of who we had become. "You didn't mean to," I repeated. "But you did." That's the part that matters. I picked up my bag. Walked to the door. He didn't follow. The rain had just started outside, a soft, steady drizzle that blurred the streets and made the world look like it was exhaling. I stepped into it. No umbrella. No rush. The taxi I'd called was already waiting. I opened the door myself. The driver asked where to. "Anywhere that doesn't feel like pretending," I answered. He didn't need more than that. He drove. Out the window, everything I had known passed in slow motion, the street, the trees, the store we used to walk to. None of it felt like mine anymore. Not in a bitter way, just in a closed-book way. I arrived at the small apartment. Empty. Clean. New air. I didn't unpack right away. I just stood by the window and watched the rain. Then I sat on the floor. Opened my notebook. Wrote one last line from that part of my life. Sometimes, the loudest goodbye is the one that doesn't ask for a response. And I meant it. No more explaining. No more decoding silences. No more justifying intuition. This was mine now, not just the space, but the story. If you've ever left a place, a person, or a version of yourself without slamming the door, you know this kind of ending. Quiet. Final. Powerful. And if this story resonated with you, if it made you feel less alone or more seen, I hope you'll share it. Subscribe. Leave a comment if you've ever walked away not to hurt someone, but to stop hurting yourself. Because some stories aren't told to get attention. They're told to remind us we're not the only ones who notice the reflection in the glass.